Hey, welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox, and today I want to talk to you about site planning for your homestead, your retreat, your bug out location, whatever. We're going to talk about that. But first, cue the intro or something. I don't really do those anymore. This is the wood that people had their eyes on that I talked about the other day. It is oak. I just cut it down a couple months ago, cut it into these rounds, and it is not ready to burn. It needs to be split and seasoned for a good long time before we burn it. And I know that, and I was leaving it where it was because I didn't really have a place for it down here. This is not the place I wanted to put it, and but you know, I talked about it yesterday. I had to move it if I wanted to keep it. We're going to get to planning your site, but you know, a little homestead update in theory. This is my woodshed number 1, and you saw a video on this earlier if you were here. It was full, 4 rows of firewood in there when winter started, and I also had another row of firewood right there. Hello, ducks. I had another row of firewood right here. Did the log cabin stack on one end and then had it, you know, just coming down from that, covered in that plastic right there that I'm in the process of dismantling. And that was like extra, you know, spare magazines. And as I ate this pile down already this winter, it was always my intent to replace it, because that's old and seasoned wood right there. Replace that wood into here to refill it. But if you recall, I talked about earlier how I wanted to have another woodshed. I didn't talk about wanting another woodshed. This is the 3rd time shooting this. I had to go chase some guineas. I wanted to split my firewood before March for next year. Okay, well that's good. Where are you going to put it? If you're using this one for your winter heating, cooking methods, where are you going to put the new stuff? Because if I split that oak out there and then stack it here, it's in the front, I don't want to burn it yet. And you know, you're not gonna, it's kind of like when you do food storage in your closet and you buy a new case of tomato soup and you already got tomato soup, you got to pull everything out and put it in there and do that. Well, you don't want to do that with firewood. And so my plan has always been to build another woodshed, basically at a right angle to this one, right here in this area where I'm currently splitting. That's the plan. Well, I got to clear that area out to work. I have the materials. As a matter of fact, I scrounged this metal right here. That's going to be on the roof, and I bought some 4x4s, treated foreground contact, that I'm going to use as the pillars. And I'm going to build another woodshed. But first, there's always more. There was this huge dead tree standing, big at the base. And I had a brother come out, a couple brothers, help me fell it because my chainsaw bar isn't long enough. And we dropped that baby, and it was a big dead tree. It's already seasoned. And so I'm in the process, and I talked about this in another video, of bringing it here, cutting it up out there in the rounds, dragging it out here, stacking it here by my splitter, hydraulic splitter, so that I can split this and, you know, have more firewood. Well, I got to get all this out of the way before I build my woodshed. And now I've just added to my problem. I've compounded it by bringing this stuff in here, which isn't going anywhere till I have a woodshed to put it in. Because you don't want to move stuff 8 times. That's a pain in the neck. And you can avoid that with prior proper planning, which prevents extremely poor performance. So, that was all interlude what I'm doing today, sort of. Doing other things today too. A book. I know I'm going all over the place. I've had a lot of coffee this morning. A book that I'm interested in, and I've recommended it here many times. Let's come in here. It's getting windy out there. Many times, is Creating a Life Together by, I think it's Christensen. Come on, go down. I know, it's my camera crew skills again. All right, that should be good enough, right? Creating a Life Together by Christensen. And it's a book intended for those interested in creating intentional community. But man, there's, like any good book, there's a lot of good stuff in there, not necessarily directly related to intentional community. Although if you listen to PJF, You should never talk about yourself in the third person. If you listen to me and you come out of Hermite People and you get a retreat, you know that I say all the time you need people. If you have people living with you on your retreats, messages, a whole bunch of them just came in at once on the phone that no one knows the number to, not even me. If you have a whole bunch of people, you have de facto an intentional community. One of the things they talk about in that book is spending a lot of time on your site, your land, your location, before you build the first thing. Ideally, they say spend a year or two observing it, and they're very new agey, observing the flow of nature, and the flow of nature here in the spring, there's some big creeks that go crazy, that kind of thing. Be good to know that before you built your house, but they say to look at the land before you start building things and build with the future in mind. So I know all you can afford right now is a 12 by 20 little cabin that you're going to insulate and throw some doors and windows in and a little porch on it and say, this is my slice of heaven. But eventually you're going to want to build more, right? You're going to want to put in orchards. You're going to want to do this, that, and the other thing. And what you don't want to do is find out that, oh, crap, I built my house right in the best lane to get from here to there on my land. And now I'm going to have to go around my house. And to those of you who live in flatland and think, what's the big deal? Move to the mountains, as I recommend. And you'll see that there are lines of drift that are called such for a reason. There's only certain ways you can go. And so you need to keep those things in mind. So they talk about planning out years into the future. We've done that here. In theory. Not even in theory. I mean, I have hand-drawn maps of where I want to put everything here that we'll probably never get to, but at least I have a plan. What I meant when I said in theory was that, in practice, sometimes things slip, like that wood right there that I just showed you. I had to put it somewhere. I didn't want to move it 1,000 times, so I put it there and I'll build around it, or something. But at least I have a plan. You should have a plan. They say something else in this book, and again, they're very new agey, and if you are, cool. I'm not, but I can take what is useful, discard the rest. They say discover your sacred places on the land, and then resolve not to disturb them, ever. To me, that's my super deer habitat area, right? I'm not going to mess with that. I may improve it a little bit for deer habitat, but we're not going to build up there. We're not going to do this, that, or the other thing on that part of the mountain. I'm going to leave that like it is because I want to preserve it as a food thing. As an aside, I was just watching a guy the other day. I don't even know how I got to that. You know how you fall down that rabbit hole on YouTube? You look at all those videos for you over here on the right, and you just start clicking on them, clicking on them, clicking on them. I got to some guy giving a class supposedly on creating deer habitat by hinge cutting trees. Okay, interesting concept. And he made me feel a little bit stupid for my off-the-cuff cocky comment about I know about brush piles. Clearly I don't know enough. But anyway, he was talking about that, but what I really liked about the guy was he was an excellent instructor. I like that about the video, and he was doing safety and technique and things like that. I enjoyed that, and dang, where was I going with that? Had a lot of coffee this morning. What did he do in that video that relates to site planning? Don't know. I was talking about deer habitat, maybe that was it. He had some really good ideas for creating better deer habitat. And so that's your food plot. And then I have been castigated by people who consider themselves permies, the cult that is permaculture, for saying, I do permaculture. Okay, I use some permaculture techniques. How about that? But there was I have a book, a good book on it, by one of the gurus of permaculture. And it's a simple concept, but it goes with site planning. And I also mentioned it here before. But come on, guys, I've done, pushing 3,000 videos. I've probably talked about it before. The concept of zones, and not like I live in zone, 7 or 7A or 7B or something. You should know that, PJ. I know it grows here. But the zones, and so the concept as I recall it, again, I'm not a permie. Look at the chores you do every day. Look at how much attention you give to things every week, every month, every year. And the things that you do a couple times a day should be closer to your house. And the things that you do once or twice a year should be farther from your house. That's a simple way of putting it. And so your salad garden that you go pick fresh salad from and make a bowl of salad to eat, twice a day, probably, that should be really close to your house, zone 1. The things that maybe you do once a day, like you, once or twice a day, you go feed your chickens, you go let your chickens in, you let your chickens out, whatever, but only twice a day are you dealing with them. That can be zone 2, so you kind of push that out. And then zone 3 and zone 4 and zone 5, all the way out to like your orchards out there, because you only go to your orchard a couple times. Your cattle are way out there because you don't have to deal with them that much, and so on and so forth. I found the concept interesting. It's like, think about these things now. We made a mistake with that when we first came to the land here at Shofar Mountain. Our intent was to have a big intentional community with up to like 30 families or so. And so the 4 original families that started Shofar Mountain, we were planning for growth. We were building for growth. And so we had things really spread out. And then when that didn't work, for various reasons, not all of which were other people's, when that didn't work out, and it was for a while just Sister Kate and I here, it was like, our horse was a half a mile that way, and then our orchard was a quarter mile that way, and the chickens were a quarter mile that way, and what else? The vegetable garden was a couple 100 yards that way, and just to do your morning chores, you walked like 5 miles, and it took you forever when it could have been compact. Which we've started moving things into a more compact arrangement. Site planning. Think about it. We have Shofarians here in the area that are buying land very close to us. And one of the things they do is they either put up a temporary structure on it that is literally movable, one of those sheds on skids, or they live somewhere else in a rental somewhere. And they just visit their land all the time, and they piddle on it and work on it and do this, and they start thinking, I think I'm going to put the house there, okay, and then I'm going to put the orchard there. I need to clear this so I can put solar panels in here. But they think about it, and they try to watch it for about a year. Sometimes that's hard, I know, but it's the best thing you can do. Which leads to, come out of her, my people, they're not making any more land, and it's not getting any cheaper. Sister Kate is on a mission. They're not making any more land, it's not getting any cheaper. And so if you could get your little slice of heaven now, and then just start camping on it with all your, annual leave and that kind of thing, spending time on it. Sister Kate and I bought this land back around 1990, 91, and we didn't move here till 2012. We had a real good idea how this thing was laid out because we spent a lot of time here in the interim. So site selection, site planning, think about things. Maybe look into some permaculture techniques on that. Look into some principles of military terrain, COCA. If you're into that. I said I'm going to do a write-up or a video on that. I probably need to do that sooner rather than later. Think things through a little bit. Don't be haphazard. Don't get in so much of a rush that you just do it now and then you're like, dang, I wish I could undo that. Or I'm going to undo that with a lot of effort and pain. One thing in the military, I moved the family for 20 years. About every 18 months we moved on average. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But we moved a lot. And I was typically moving to units that had what we call a high op tempo, a high operational tempo, meaning once I got there and got signed into the unit, which usually took about a week, go here, whatever. It takes about a week to get settled in an Army unit. I could be gone for 3 months, like boom. And so, and I usually had like, I would save leave and they'd give you a couple days, I don't know, about a week or so to move and get your family settled. Well, in that time, you have to move from this house to this area, find a house, arrange for the packers to bring everything, and they just kind of dump off the boxes and leave. And then you got to get it all sorted, because in about 2 weeks, you could be gone. I could be gone, you know, for a while, and I don't want to leave the wife and kids in that state. And so what would happen is, excuse me, do the best you can with what you got where you're at. We'd get the best place we could find, typically a rental, and never failed. 6 months later, you know, because you make friends, you settle down, that kind of thing. It's like, man, why didn't we get a house here? This is so much cooler. At the time, we got a house one time in Yelm, Washington. Now, this was back in the 90s. I have no idea what it's like now. It was Jay-Z Nightland then. But Yelm was like a bedroom community, you know, kind of like a mid-class, middle-class houses on decent-sized yards. Kind of out countrified a little bit. But after we lived there about a year, we discovered a town called Roy. And it was like, man, it was only like, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes further out from Fort Lewis where I was stationed. And it was rural and it was cool. And there were a lot of survivalists living out there. And it's like, man, why didn't we get a house out here? That's an example of that. But it happened a lot wherever we moved. So that goes with site planning, right? Take as much time as you can to plan where you're going to put stuff. All right, I know some of y'all have experience in these areas. I am interested in what you have to say, and now I'm going to go, I think, shoot a guinea hen. I'm tired of them picking on my rooster. All right, I'll see you out there.